Welcome to Pour Your Heart Out Therapy Sessions with Dr. Mia, a space where vulnerability meets healing. Dr. Mia is a U.S. veteran, mother of 3, and a dedicated therapist. With a doctorate in psychology, a master's in marriage and family therapy, and a bachelor's in public management and policy, Dr. Mia brings knowledge and compassion to every session. As founder of A New Way, she redefines therapy by shifting from compliance to a preventative, holistic model. Access is everything, and Dr. Mia is here to help you find self-acceptance, growth, and a life worthy of your existence. In therapy sessions with Dr. Mia, we confront the challenges that shape us, ask the tough questions, and reflect deeply. Healing is an intentional journey. Are you ready to raise the bar on your healing? In therapy sessions with Dr. Mia, we'll explore unconditional positive regard, uncover past wounds, and take steps toward a brighter, more authentic future. This is Pour Your Heart Out, Therapy Sessions with Dr. Mia. Let the healing begin.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pour Your Heart Out. I'm your girl, Nini, and I am really excited about tonight. But we're going to pause for a second because this is not just a regular episode of Pour Your Heart Out. As you saw in the intro, we have officially moved therapy sessions with Dr. Mia away from straight talk on over here to Pour Your Heart Out. Because what better place for our own Dr. Mia, who is one of the host of Pour Your Heart Out, where is a better place for her show to be than right here on Pour Your Heart Out? So I introduce to you Pour Your Heart Out Therapy Sessions with Dr. Mia. Hey, girl. Hey.
Oh, yeah. I have been adopted into a new family. Well, actually, I'm just with my more fitting family. No shade to my previous family, but we're still part of the same tree. So
yes, we are still a part of Straight Talk Society. And as a part of Straight Talk Society, we have our special little home here, Pour Your Heart Out. And now we officially have therapy sessions with Dr. Mia under the Pour Your Heart Out umbrella. So I am really excited about tonight, where you're going to be talking about the topic, a woman presidential candidate. Do you hate her policies, or are you still mad at your mother? I'm excited about this.
I'm still mad at your mother. When I tell you, I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, I want to get involved in the conversation about, politics, but I want to make sure I do it from a therapeutic stance. Because I always tell people, they always say, turn your therapy hat off. Why do you always have to be a therapist? Why do you show up as a therapist? Maybe we just want to talk to Mia. But I use the analogy that if you had a friend that was a mechanic that was driving in your car and they heard a noticeable sound that did not align with how the car is supposed to sound, would you want your friend, the mechanic, to just sit there and let you ride out clickety clunk? No, you would not.
No.
So do not ask me to take my therapy hat off. Do not ask me to play small and not be a therapist in my current profession, because you wouldn't ask the mechanic to not use his special skill set to diagnose what's wrong with your vehicle to get you back on the road. So please allow me to reintroduce myself.
Hey.
I am going to be your therapist today, and we are going to talk about something that is just very important to me, because as I have consistently said, is I understand some of the kind of talk out there and some of the concerns, but it seems like there's an overwhelming discord for a female presidential candidate. And I don't know where that is coming from. So, I dig deep and look back in my, books. And, I think we often talk about dad hurt, right? We have been talking about dad hurt and daddy issues for probably forever. And it's I cannot tell you how many books have been created how many podcasts, how many talk shows, but I don't think there's enough spaces where we're talking about mommy hurt.
Oops.
No, it's okay. I don't think we're talking about a mommy hurt. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want you to share this post. I want to engage with somebody that actually has concerns about this female candidate and ask the hard questions. Because is it policy, or are you still agonizing over some past trauma that you may have had an experience with a woman in your life? It might not necessarily be your mom, but overwhelmingly, it starts with your mother, because she is the first person that taught you how to love a woman, taught you how to receive a woman, how to interact with a woman, how to be in a space with the opposite sex. And in the absence of you having that experience, everything that you've experienced have kind of been you winging it. And so if you can sit down and we can unpack and you can deal with that truth, and whether you had your mother there and it was a negative experience, then maybe that's another thing that we need to unpack. But I'm kind of like begging people to dig deep to figure out what is it that's causing this visceral response. It's not just like, oh, I'm not going to vote with her because I don't agree with this or I don't agree with that. I have literally heard people like, women aren't capable, a woman president can't do this, and a woman president can't do that. And I'm like, there was once upon a time where we didn't believe that women belonged in the workplace at all, like at all. And so if that rumor or that myth has been debunked, because women are really good at debunking things, right? Tell me I can't do something, and I'm gonna show you that I can. And not just because I'm trying to make you less than. I want to assert the fact that I am capable of doing it, because I'm an able-bodied human being just like you. Granted, there are some things like I tell people I'm just not going to choose to do, but definitely want to dive in. So all that to say, welcome. Nene said she going to just introduce me and then leave me. I see her over there and I'm like, I'm going to just keep talking because I think this is it. This is where she drops me off.
Yes, I'm about to let you do your thing. You have already done an amazing introduction. So I'm going to back off, let you do your thing, and let's get into this conversation. Anybody that wants to join the conversation, please feel free. Go ahead and type your questions, type your comments. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. If you are brave and you want to jump on stage with her and have this dialogue, I'll be dropping the link in the chat as well. So go ahead and do your thing, ma'am.
Hey, Straight Talk Society. So we are here to have a real discussion about our Vice President, Kamala Harris, who is now running for president of the United States of America. Now, I'm going to take a different approach because, as you know, I am a therapist, a psychotherapist. And so I want to dive into the possibility that maybe you don't like her policy because you might have some underlying issues with women. And I could just already hear people in the background saying, oh, it's not that deep, and oh, why we always have to go there. Because as I stated earlier, we have had numerous conversations. We have unpacked Daddy hurt. We have unpacked all of the things that we say have happened to women because of the lack of relationship that they have had with their fathers, their absent fathers, and how that has impacted the way that they love, the way that they show up in relationships, the way that they show up in numerous spaces. We have talked about that, in my opinion, but I don't think it's ever enough, because I think each one teach one. You may think that it's overkill and people don't have to talk about it anymore, but maybe somebody has never heard kind of like the approach of why I am the way I am, because it may be because I never knew my father. And so I can speak from my personal experience, my father was in the home. So I was raised in a 2-parent home. I am of Haitian descent, and so those islanders believe in marriage. And so my parents were married up until the age of 16 when they finally divorced. So I am not the person that's going to say, like, yeah, I don't know what it is to have a man in the house. However, I do not know how it is. I did not learn until later on in life how to properly interact with a man, because my father was very much so involved in the church. And so he was a present, absent father, if that makes any sense. Like, he was there, he made sure the bills were paid, we were taken care of. But as it relates to, like, being daddy's little girl, that didn't happen. So if I can sit here and openly say, I have had to learn to build this complex relationship with a man, right? There are layers to it because it's not who I am. I'm not a man. So there's nothing that I can tell me that will help me deal with a man other than dealing with a man. So I had to learn and build this plane as I flew it. And so if I can sit here and say that, is it possible that as a man, and this is not just Black man or white, Latino or why, I'm talking about any man right now that currently believes that a woman cannot run this country. I'm talking to you because there is something that resides within you that believes that. And it's not about qualification, and it's not about whether she have time, because we have the facts. We have the facts of what her qualifications are. And yet still you have those same people saying, yeah, no, she's not qualified. But we had a presidential candidate that never spent a day in politics. Talk about no qualifications. Like, if we're really going to use that as like the carrot or the gauge of, okay, the person has to be qualified. So we literally had a presidential candidate with no experience into politics was elected on that merit, because people were saying, like, oh, it would be nice to have somebody that's not a politician, and maybe they'll do it something different because, we don't like politicians, and politicians do this and politicians do that. So, okay, you got what you wanted. And well, we know the outcome of that. Didn't go so well because, some will argue that we were better off during that time, but I would like people to understand how math works, because if you inherit a ledger that is in the positive, you have funds to spend, you have an economy that was thriving. And so that 4 years, because they only serve one term, you were able to deplete that ledger during your time and then hand it over to now a new president to now fix everything that was broken. So if we use that as an example, I'm just saying that, oh, she needs to be qualified. We know we had a president that wasn't qualified. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. I need people to tell me, what is your relationship with your mothers, young men out there? I mean, I have my little brother, so I'm speaking from experience, just so that we are clear. Would you feel the same way if she ran on the Republican ticket? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have to be very clear that I read policies. I am the one that is there thumbing through policies and seeing how they are applicable to my life. I have line item, highlighted project, because people are like, oh, you talking about Project 2025, but have you read it? Well, I kind of like reading, like, a lot. So yes, I have read policies. And so when I tell you I am looking for the party that impacts my life, and unfortunately, over the past time frame of my existence, it has been a certain party that have enacted policies that directly impact my life for the positive. that have been beneficial to the people that look like me. And so I always say, I give people a perfect example about, me purchasing my house and not having my student loans count against me as a debt to income ratio, because there was a policy passed during a candidate that student loans would not count more than 10% of your income. Again, people don't know the policies that are directly impacting their lives. So when they are making these comments about why they won't vote, and I ask them, okay, so what's the policies? What policies have benefited you and how have they impacted you, and why are you choosing this? Can't give me an answer, because I'm willing to go in and have a conversation because I'm curious. I always say, get curious. Somebody told me this. Get curious before you get furious. I just want to know, why are you choosing not to support this candidate? So I do want to ask the question to the men out there that's not choosing this candidate. Just tell me why. I'm curious. I'm not going to get furious, because that's not the way that we get to the other side. I think civil discord is very important, where people are able to be on the opposite side and ask questions and actually get those answers. Papa Exo says, I believe a lot of men and women play the "we just aren't ready for a woman in charge" card to disguise their hate for women. Yes, that is true. And so that's a perfect segue, Mike, into my first topic, kind of just going through the timeline of the women's suffrage movement, right? Because we seem to believe that we've been at this forever, and we haven't. Like, women have not been in a place where we can just freely make decisions about ourselves, and we can move through life without the oversight of a man. So I want people to follow this timeline, that in 1771 was the first act that confirmed a certain conveyance of women that could receive deeds, right? Like, this is 1771. And then in 1850 was the National Convention, where Sojourner Truth kind of gave that speech. And so it started to like light the fire. And remember, this wasn't all women, just some women. Then in 1776, Abigail wrote the letter Remembering the Ladies. Then we talked about in 1878, the Married Women's Property Act was passed. In 1878, like, women have never had the freedoms and liberty of a man, a white man. And so when you're talking about women as a whole, and then you put Black women under white women, like, women have been fighting to be seen as valuable in society for a very long time. So it's no wonder that there's this innate nature for a man to believe that a woman is not capable, because from the foundation in the beginning of our time, it was like, yeah, they can't do it. All I hear is like, they can't do it. Why? Please tell me why. Papa X said, now that I've matured, I realize that she is a woman who is trying her best. Who is a woman trying her best? Oh, your mother. Yes. My relationship with my mother is like a beach, always constant with insane tides, LOL. She understands my personality, so she adjusts for it. And I used to have her on a pedestal. And you say you used to have her on a pedestal. Why did you take her off the pedestal? Is it because you believe that she was like superhuman and she was not capable of any mistakes, like most of us believe about our parents? And then we learn like, oh, they were winging it, especially as we became parents. Because I think about it now, when my mom used to come home and work and come home and cook, and now I have to do that. I'm like, y'all want some Wendy's? Because it's like, it's a lot. It is a lot, because now women are in the workplaces, right? So on top of all of the duties and responsibilities that we previously had, we now have to now carry the responsibility of now actually working. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying sometimes we gonna eat Wendy's. If these spaces, these convo is more about her blackness versus her qualifications, she's more qualified than Trump without a doubt. Right. I agree. She was more qualified than some of the presidents from way back yonder. But, you know, people don't want to admit to that about her qualifications. And so I think what happens is that when you don't want to face that, right, even when you're presented with facts, you know, we call it cognitive dissonance. Like even when you have the information that contradicts something that you believe and you still want to believe what you believe, you're just choosing, well, I'm going to diagnose you. You're just choosing not to believe. You're choosing not to believe in the truth. So I don't think that people want to have these conversations in these spaces because they really just want to believe what they want to believe. And just the fact that the country is divided, like 50% of people, like we're still like, this is a close race. And for me, I'm like, oh, how is this a close race? But there is a lot of people that believe that she is not the better candidate. And so we need to talk about that. So let's go back to how women have gained their rights. So it wasn't until 1952 that women were granted the rights to serve in official capacities. Like 1952. A lot of us have family members born in that time. So our rights is not even as old as somebody that is living right now that is a family member. So of course, this culture of not believing that women are enough or that they have the qualifications or that they can do the things that a man can do is because you have a whole generation that was yielded and reared and just grew up to believe that a woman's place was just in the household. Because it wasn't until 1952. So I'm going through this timeline to kind of make you understand and saying, like, it's not necessarily just you saying to yourself, no, she doesn't qualify and that she can't do the job. I am leading you into the timeline to show you how this has kind of been cultivated, curated, and kind of molded your framework and your thought process as to why you don't believe that she is qualified. Because you literally have had a system in place that says that she isn't capable. And it wasn't until 1952 that women were even allowed a seat at the table and allowed to serve in official capacities. Because before that, we were only allowed to stay home and have babies. That's it. I think another issue she has to overcome is how the Democrats used her to get the black vote, then pushed her to the background during the Biden years. So I believe, like any marketing strategy, because that would be the same thing with Trump selling the shoes and the watch, you know, you have people advising of different strategies within these campaigns that don't necessarily understand the full context of what it means when you do this and the long-term impact of it, especially not having that hindsight to say that she's probably going to run later on. But I think everybody uses the black vote. So now why have her carry the charge or the Democrats carry the charge of that being a downfall when literally, because keep in mind, our dollars exchange our hands one time. Like we not tight. We are not a close-knit community. We do not make decisions together like we used to. So it is easy to infiltrate the Black community and lead different conversations and directions and use different marketing strategies to apply to our community, because we've lost that grassroots approach to how we move and mobilize and create change within our communities. So, as a marketing agent, they're going to focus on the demographics that they can most influence. And we know, based on our buying power, who that is, right? So I believe everybody carries the weight of using Black vote to secure nominations and seat and dollars and campaigns and sell things. We have often been used in several arenas. Nini says, once they won office, she started doing her job. The VP job isn't to be the forefront. Oh gosh, yes, I so agree with that. I think that it has a lot. I kind of like pause when I hear people say like, oh, she didn't do anything. She didn't do anything. I'm sorry. At your job, do you overstep your boss? Do you talk for your boss? No, they bring you to the table to have discussion about payroll opposed to you. And even if you're not in a VP position, but just in your position, in your supervisor's position, do you overstep your supervisor? Like, there's a chain of command. I'm in the military and I understand chain of command. I don't think everybody understands chain of command. So I'm going to leave that there, because I have heard that so many times, like, oh, she didn't do anything. Okay, I want y'all to we can go through the VPs, all of them, and we can really go through and see what have they done? What were the things that they were instrumental in moving forward? As they say, they're there to break the vote, because like in 2008, when the House and the Senate was split 49-49, that VP was responsible for casting the vote that can decide whether a bill goes or not. So we don't see the work that they do because we're not privy to it. But that argument kind of makes me a little irritated, because I want to come to your job and see how often you overstep your supervisor and your boss and do more than them. As a matter of fact, I know most people say that, oh, they don't pay me for that, so I'm not doing that. If that's the overwhelming response when it comes to how many times have you outworked or out commanded your supervisor or boss. My daughter asked me if I took home economics in school. I told her yes. In middle school, her reply was, they were really raising y'all to be housewives. Oh goodness, Moon Goddess. Let me tell you how I learned how to sew a whole dress in 9th grade. A whole dress. Some would argue like, oh, it's something that we need because, they don't really teach people how to cook now. Because I think the difference was it was everybody that was able to take the class. Like, there were boys and girls in there. An overwhelming number of boys. Definitely. There wasn't a whole bunch of boys sewing garments. And this was back in 1996. So, yeah, they were still grooming us to be housewives. Dr. Mia, you stop, you leave out so much. What am I leaving out? Deplorable king. Black women have owned businesses, land throughout history, and women didn't vote because they didn't go to war. If war happens, no, sir. No, sir. I mean, we can only count on the laws that were actually passed. I don't know where you received the information about Black women own businesses and land. We are talking about a framework that existed prior to today, that only in 1850, when did I say? 1952. Only in 1952 that women were able to serve in official capacities. The right for a married woman to own land did not happen until 1878. And that is a married white woman. So I'm not really sure where you're getting your archives for, but I definitely would like to see them, because remember, the civil rights movement did not only provide freedoms and liberties to Black people, but it also liberated a whole nother group of people. Because they often ask you who benefited most from the civil rights movement. Most people would argue that it was Black. Some will argue that it was white women. I don't know where the scholars sit on that question, but I would employ you to do the research. Somebody's coming in. I would employ you to do the research. And if we're talking about prior to, like, if we're talking about women owning land in Africa and prior to slavery and all of that, like, yeah, we can go into those conversations. But we're following the timeline to kind of address why are the men right now currently having a visceral response to a Black woman being president. Because if we look at the timeline, if you were curated in a time and space where you did not believe that a woman belonged anywhere else but in the household, it is hard for you now to just pivot and say to yourself, oh, she'll be able to run a country. Because it wasn't until 1952 that she was even able to hold a job and serve in official capacities. And official capacity means, like, I can sit in a Fortune 500 company and maybe hold a position as whatever position I applied for, like allowed to. So that's what we're addressing. Like, you know how I say don't move the goalposts, because if we're talking about land and stuff, we can go back prior to that. Yes, but I really want to get to the point of trying to figure out why are we having so many men that are opposed to this female presidential candidate. And I'm leading the conversation to say that it's not necessarily just their fault of why they're having this visceral response, that they've literally lived in a time and space that have created a narrative as to why they feel this way. Yes, some of it has to do with their own personal relationships with their mothers. And it's like, what is your current relationship with the woman in your life? The first woman that should have said, I love you, that taught you what love is, that made you understand unconditional positive regard, made you understand what love looks like, your interaction with the opposite sex. You learn that with your mother. And if you never learned that, every relationship with a woman after that is you building the plane as you fly it. And I shared early on that the reason that I could be transparent and say that is because I had to learn how to be in a relationship with a man. I had to be transparent. Even though my father was present, he was there, but that day-to-day interaction, that intimacy of talking to and being understood, that's something that you have to learn if you've never been taught that. Yes, but what was the year, sir? What was the year for Madam C.J. Walker? And if you know, ingredient, she came out with it before that. But I'm not gonna let you move the goalposts. So, straight talk. I'll preface this by saying I'm Team Kamala. So now that point has been established, give me one instance where she stood up for Black people solely outside of a photo op. And I will ask, I always say, like, I will ask the same thing. Give me an instance where Bill Clinton stood up for Black people outside of a photo op and he was still voted for. Give me an instance where Donald Trump stood up for Black people outside of a photo op and you still voted for him. And I'm not saying you in particular, but when we put these assignments on people and we don't make them applicable across the board, then now you're not playing fair. You're not, because you need to hold everybody to that standard. Give me an opportunity time when Reagan stood up for Black people outside of a photo op. But overwhelmingly, so many Black people voted for Reagan. So I can't give you the answer because I'm not on her campaign trail. And it's not about her standing up for Black people. It's about, like I said, if we just tie her and we marry her to that one conversation, that one aspect of her career, if she's only married to that one aspect of her career, then no one would be a viable candidate. If we're only just giving them that one marker and they get 1 point for standing up for Black people outside of a photo op. I know when she stood up for victims of human trafficking, and that was before the photo op, before she even became president. It's about, like they say, the long-term moral standing of what that person believes in. And if I had to pick between two candidates of their long-term moral standing and what they believe in, I'm going to go with somebody that is more reflective of the policies and the things that I value, of making sure people aren't trafficked, making sure that big companies like Big Pharma is not taking advantage of people that are diabetic and making them pay $300 a vial for their medication. What are the policies that directly impact the people in your court? And it's not about Kamala. It's about the party. It's about the party. And that's what I keep saying. Like, if we could just get past the fact that this is a woman presidential candidate and you just look at the policy that is going to directly impact you. And I would also employ, if you did not vote in your local election, your primary election, you don't have no say, because the person that truly determines what happens in your state is during your local and your primary elections. Your Senate, your House, your representatives, those people are the ones that make the decisions, that go to the floor and vote your interests. So many people never show up in those primary elections. They only show up at the presidential election, and you have halfway lost the fight in addressing the needs of your community if you're not showing up in your primary election. We put all of our eggs in the presidential election basket when you really should be showing up at your primaries. Y'all not gonna get me off topic. And of course, we have a troll. I don't think that we could ever really have anybody on without somebody just going to spew stuff just for the heck of it. That's fine. We welcome everybody. This is a conversation about us exploring, why, if you are currently a man that has a negative response to a female presidential candidate, for us to explore the narrative of what other relationships in your life that may be related to your mother, your sister, or whatever negative relationship. Because I'm fine if you can come on and you can give me facts like this, and this. Like, these are my policies, these are my beliefs, and this is what I don't believe in, and this is what I don't believe in. But every time I talk to someone that tells me that we can't have a female presidential candidate, is because she just can't run a country. She's not qualified. Just very blatant statements like that. And I'm like, I think there's some other thing going on with you that you might need to double down and dig into, because why isn't she qualified? She's definitely had more schooling than you. And it's not to throw shade. It's not to just be disrespectful, but it's just to speak facts. Just facts. Just facts. I drink facts, eat facts, regurgitate facts, because I can't live in this make-up society of what could be. You didn't know, and I tell people, I see that a lot. I was like, oh, I don't know who she is. I don't know who she is. You didn't know who Bill Clinton was. You didn't know who Ronald Reagan was. Your parents voted for them. You didn't know who Obama was. I mean, this idea that you are supposed to have this intimate relationship with your political candidate, like really, like people are really having these conversations. Like, I don't know who she is. So many people didn't know who Trump was. I just say, if you're going to use something to gauge, use it across the board. Just be consistent. That's all I'm saying. People are so inconsistent in how they approach things. They do it for this thing and they don't do it for that way. To do it, we call them schemas. multiple schemas. You put on all of these different faces as you move through different things in your life. Just be consistent. Put on the same face of how you deal with everything when you are approaching it. So the next election, I want you to use the same energy and using that same inference of saying, I need to know that candidate and tell me how you have gotten to know them. That's all. So going back to the conversation about women's rights and how we've gotten here, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the fact that you just hate your mother. It's just that you have been reared, you have grown up in a society where you have been told that women aren't qualified. Because like I said, it wasn't until 1952 that women were even allowed to serve in official capacity. It wasn't until 1963 that there was an Equal Pay Act. Like, imagine there had to be a law that was passed in order for you to pay me to the same amount of money that you're paying John to do the exact same work. Now, I'm not talking about different work. I'm talking about the exact same job. We are both flipping burgers. And because the hiring manager might have a bias, because again, he might not even believe I belong in that place working, because I should probably be home taking care of my kids. And he definitely don't want to hear that I have to go home because the child is sick. He's going to play John more. I mean, and keep in mind, we're still fighting this fight because there's still industries and sectors that don't have equal pay. Like, it's still not an across the board thing. But I think we can all agree that people should be paid their equal pay. But again, didn't happen until 1963. So again, a whole generation, like, it's not even a person's lifespan of believing that women belong in a workspace. So of course you don't believe that she belongs as a presidential. You don't believe she belongs in the White House because you weren't raised in a time frame. Your parents weren't. And so what did they pass on to you? Or what did they not pass on to you? There's somebody supposed to be helping me on here reading these comments. I'm trying to talk and read and talk and read. Okay, let's see. We have Miguel Lopez. He says there's people who will vote for her because they want a woman president. You are absolutely right, Miguel. And there's also people that voted for Trump because they wanted a non-politician in office. Or there were people that wanted to vote for Clinton in the past because they wanted Democrats in office, because prior to Clinton, there was kind of like a drought of having a Democrat in office. And so they just voted for Clinton because they wanted a Democrat. Like, everybody has their own personal reasons why they are voting the way that they are. I am asking people to make sure that you are not opposing to voting in a certain direction just because she's a woman, and you have not addressed your personal issues with your belief system of whether she is qualified or not, and to dig deep as to where you are getting that from and what are you gauging it against. That's it. I like curious before furious. I'm not here to tell anybody that their choices are wrong and that something is wrong with them, because like I said, I don't go home with you. You don't pay any of my bills. Like, there's not this absolute necessity to make you feel the way I feel. I respect people's opinion, but I just ask for people to just really have these conversations in their personal spaces, even like husbands and wives. Like, I don't even think people are bringing this up in their own personal homes with just to keep the noise down, because they don't want to fight, or they don't want to have an argument or a real conversation about why we are voting the way that we are voting as a family or individually. I just think that it's a conversation that we should be having in our households. Because are you not voting because you really don't think she's qualified, or you just don't think a woman is qualified? So Oh, this is my favorite one, guys. My absolutely favorite one. Did you know that in 1974, the credit card issuance to women act? I'm telling you, I'm not making this stuff up, because people don't understand. You are enjoying these privileges, but you don't even know how you have come into these access points, because again, you're not reading policies, you're not reading and being part of the process. Because prior to 1974, all y'all swipe left, swipe right, swipey. As a woman, guess who would not have access to that? The credit card issuance to women in 1974. So again, it's not that you don't believe a woman is capable. You have been reared into a society that had to pass a law to allow a woman to have a credit card. A credit card. Because we forget that everything that has been granted had to be enacted. It was not a birthright. We forget that as women, we forget that as Black people, we forget that as Latinos, we forget that as immigrants. What you are enjoying, what you see as your liberty and your freedom, at some point had to be enacted by a group of people that believed or had enough buy-in to vote in favor of you now enjoying the benefits that may or may not have been a part of your birthright based on what color you were born. 1974, the credit card issuance of women. I wasn't born yet. But that's very important for people to realize. Just these simple things. It's the reason why you don't believe a woman should be a president. Believe it or not, it's 45. How I've been talking this long? There's no way I've been talking this long. These questions have been on fire. Let me see if I missed any questions before I go on. Kamala Harris called 18 to 25-year-old young people voters stupid. Did she apologize for saying that? Kamala Harris called, okay, that was what she said. I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff that another candidate said that have never apologized for. Like I said, as long as you hold everybody to the same standard, we okay. But don't hold one person to one standard and hold another person to another standard. I'm just saying, be an equal opportunity evaluator. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of those out there. Keep the same energy across the board. And when you do that, then we can have a conversation. Absolutely. Trump wants to remove taxes on when you work overtime. How do you feel about that? Yes, I have heard about that. I would say, how does the police officers feel about that? Because I am a military person. Most people don't even know that. I am a veteran. I have fought. I have taken my butt across the water to fight for liberties and freedoms that people enjoy and take for granted. So when I stand here and talk about sacrificing for my country, a country that I was not even born in, I could stand on the shoulders of my comrades that have been fallen soldiers that I left in Iraq. So how does the police officers feel about that? Because if it's anybody that racks up overtime, it's our police officers. So I believe that you should listen to what he's saying, because we are 50% divided. Some of the world believes that that's our best candidate. I do not believe that you should dictate whether somebody can get overtime or not if they're going to do the work. Yep. I'm just making sure I did not miss any questions. All right. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. It looks like I'm missing Kevin the Maker reviews. Why is her message deleted? She didn't say anything weird. Oh, I don't. I'm not a trail, silly vote. Yeah. Deplorable back clean. What did you see, Trevor? Ow! Deplorable Black King. What? See, Trevor, I told you. You told me what? Share. I keep telling you, I love civil discord. I don't mind the conversation.
They're talking about you moving that goalpost when Trevor
Oh,
asked you about
when
the
Trevor
photo
asked me.
Yeah, about the blacks and the photo, and you answered the question. You said that you can't answer that question because you're not on the campaign trail with her.
Right. I can't answer that question. And then I said, and what I continue to say is, like, use that same energy across the board. You didn't ask that question about anybody else. You haven't hold anybody else to that standard of using the Black vote. Don't just use it for the Black woman and the Black man. You don't know how many times I hear, oh, Obama didn't do anything for Black people. Well, let me enlighten some people that you need the House and the Senate to pass bills. And we were tied in the Senate, 49-49, when Obama was in office. And there were 13 policies that the Republicans said that they would make sure as soon as they got into office that they took out. So we didn't even get a chance to experience the benefit of some of those policies passed because they were on a hit list to be removed, and they were overturned, 13 of them. So when I tell people, do your research, please do your research when you're talking about what was and was not done for your community. Do you even know who your community is and how they were impacted? Have you walked door to door or talked to your family members to understand what was impacted? No, I don't think most people do. And then if you look at those 13 policies that were overturned, like they literally say like their only job is going to be to overturn these policies that would have benefited us. But guess what? I don't, we're not gonna let this pass because we didn't own the House and the Senate. And if we understand the way that it works, you have to pass the bill through the House and the Senate before the president gets to sign off on it. And then if he doesn't sign off on it within 10 days of it being passed, then it's not a bill. And that's when they close down the Senate. Have you heard the times when they're taking a break? You think they're taking a break just because they want to take a break? No, they're taking a break because they're purposely trying not to sign the bills that they don't want to go through because they have 10 days. Shutting down the government for 30 days, that is their way of protesting. Come on, y'all. Urban policy and politics. I have an undergrad in it. I'm ready. Let's go.
Dr. Mia say, I'm ready.
What will hurt her? What will hurt her? You have these Black churches, all congregations not to vote for either because neither meet biblical policy, ex-abortions, Black women. I was late if it was talked about. Yeah, no, I totally agree, Michelle. I talk about it all the time. That it's interesting that we can vote for somebody that is disrespectful to women and have blatantly stole and just did things that, you know, if you call yourself a Christian at the bare minimum, is that the standard? Like, is that the standard? And if that is now the new standard, then yeah, I don't want no part of it because that can't be right. And then I often ask, because of course it's so easy to ride this abortion narrative, and it's like the ones that don't understand, like everything is off the table. So people that can't have a DNC after they've had a miscarriage, that's off the table. Like people really don't understand. Like you can't, not even a medical doctor can use his years of knowledge of studying to be a doctor to understand the human body and make a life-saving decision without fear of going to prison. That's what we doing, Christians. Just no abortion, but understand the clause of it. Like I do believe that I tell people I've had 3 kids, 3 pregnancies. Like I it's not my story, but I have sisters, I have nieces, I have like the complication of having a child. And I think because women are responsible for having children, the importance and the life-threatening aspect of having a child every single time, what that means, like you are literally faced with death with every birth. No one even can wrap their mind around it, and we simplify it to a bill. We simplify it to a bill. Okay, that's what we're doing now. So for those of the people that are just going to ride the abortion conversation, it's all good until it's somebody in your family that you have to, watch not receive life-saving treatment. And yeah, it's not that simple. Bringing a child into this world is not simple. And for the people that minimize it and don't understand it, I just hope it never comes down your street. Black churches have a history of selling out the Republicans, in my opinion. They hold no sway with me. I think that's a whole different conversation too. I think Black churches have been used, churches periods have been used to kind of feed society messages and movements and enact laws and rules. Like, there has been a lot done in the name of Christ, right? And we talk about slavery. Slavery was done in the name of Christ, right? Of the church and obeying your masters. And so I think religion has played a role in how society has moved, and it continues to be used as a vehicle to do that. I tell people, y'all better watch Handmaid's Tale. It is not far from the truth. It is, I often ask, is life imitating art? Is art imitating life? Because if you have watched Handmaid's Tale, you would know this feels way too familiar. It feels like you're reading or watching something, and like we're moving in a time that is unpredictable if we don't vote our conscience. What is your thoughts on age limits for? I didn't even get to really talk about my topic. I knew this was gonna happen. What are your thoughts on people trying to run for president and an age limit for people? So this is my thoughts. The baby boomers still have not retired. If you could be 88, there's, again, like I always said, let's keep the same energy across the board, because if there is a clean end age, there could be a clean start age, but it doesn't seem to be a clear end age. Like, even Biden, is aged. Like, he is not the same person. But if it wasn't for like people talking to him and the conversation to now pass the torch, these silent generations and these baby boomers really want to be in the game until their last breath. They are not giving Gen Xers an opportunity to take their proper place to move society in the direction that we understand, because we were born in a time between then and now. So we can fill in the gap. But Xers are literally fighting for positions that should absolutely be vacated right now by the boomers, but the boomers don't want to let go. And it may be because they've created an economy that you can't afford to retire. That's a whole different conversation. But I really want people to talk about and explore the possibility, like I said, of this conversation that we had as to why you don't want a female presidential candidate. When you talk about her policies and you talk about the opportunity economy, you talk about immigration, that was a bipartisan rule ready to go, and then it was thrown down. We talked about abortion. We have the NATO and Ukraine issue. We have the Israel and the Gaza war. We have taxes. We have healthcare. We talk about crime. There's climate. There's gun laws. Those are the things that we're supposed to be talking about, not whether she's Black or not. Because it used to be that a drop of Black meant that you're Black. Now people are actually saying with a Jamaican father that she's not Black enough, or maybe she's not Black at all. Because I know with Seminoles, if they marry or they have a child with Black, and it's considered an ounce, like if you're a Native and you have an ounce of Native blood. When did we start doing this? Stop it. We're supposed to be focusing on our economy, our healthcare, our taxes, the crime, inflation, gun laws, abortion, NATO and Ukraine, Israel and Gaza, immigration. And I need everybody to settle on the fact y'all are all immigrants. Stop it. Every single person in this entitlement of immigrants that have come, and they're trying to close the border because you don't want other immigrants to have your same opportunity. I don't know who these people are. Like, I have literally heard people like, no, we need to control the borders. No, I do believe that there is a process that needs to be in place, that needs to be expedited so that people can get processed properly. But to close the border because you came over here illegally, maybe you didn't. Maybe you came over on a student visa and then you decided to marry and get your visa that way. Not throwing no shade at anybody in particular, but yeah, I know who I'm talking about. So I'm flustered. I'm flustered about what we're really talking about here when we have so many other issues that we really should have a great debate on the table, not whether a female could be president. What is she saying on this? And then, you saw the debate. Did she answer the questions opposed to her opponent? That is all you're gauging upon, like you have done all of the other presidential debates. I really appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. Like, this was my first time talking straight through. I hope I did not bore you guys. I hope I didn't talk too much.
Did awesome.
I hope I was able to talk through some of my points. I had my papers. I got through maybe 50% of it. But I really, really want everyone to examine your principles. Just do your research and study for yourself. And look at the policies historically that have benefited you and yours. Make your decision based on that. Because I tell people right now, like, as a Black Haitian, an Afro-Caribbean woman, understanding Clinton's policies back then, right? Because I remember my mom voting for Clinton and understanding the impact of the 3 strikes and you're out, of what it meant back then. But I also read why Clinton did that, because he was trying to get that bipartisan, because he needed the Senate and the House, and it would have been the first Democrat. And so he offered something that he didn't necessarily believe in, but it was appealing to the Republican Party, of that 3 strikes and out, because it needed to be strong on crime, because historically the Democrats were seen as not being strong on crime. Like, there's a whole article on it. I implore you to read. But I often wonder, like, I don't know that I would have voted for him back then, understanding that policy and knowing the impact that it did. But hindsight 2020, nobody knew that at that time. But do your research as to why we are where we are, how we have arrived here. Read. I remember somebody telling me, and it hurt so bad, where it was like, if you want to hide something from Black people, put it in a book. Because unfortunately, I tell people, my people are destroyed by the lack of knowledge. That is applicable to the Bible. That is applicable across the board. We have to start educating ourselves, not waiting for somebody else to educate us. We live in the information age. So there's nothing that you need to know that you can't find out. And continue to dig and ask questions. Make that decision based on what's good for you and yours. But don't just say, we don't want a woman president because she's not qualified. Let's stop with that narrative and let's really answer the question, what is ailing you? What is your belief system as to why you believe a woman cannot be a president? I'm glad you joined me tonight. Thank you for talking with us. Thank you for joining us. I hope you continue this conversation in your own homes so that we can vote in a direction that brings our country closer and heal what has been broken. Straight Talk Society, we love you. Peace. You muted, Nini. Nini, you muted.
I'm sorry. That was awesome. I am super proud of you. You held your own. You did an amazing job. Thank you, everybody in the comments, for engaging. This was an amazing conversation, even with those that don't agree. And that's what we're about on Straight Talk Society. It's not about us agreeing with each other about everything, but it's about having some respectful conversations. And I felt that that was had. So thank you, everybody, for engaging. Straight Talk Society, you all showed out in the comments. Let's see if I can remember everybody. Of course, our host, Trevor. Thank you. Our girl, as far as Pour Your Heart Out, Moon Goddess. Thank you. The best YouTube moderator in the land, Keela. Thank you for joining us. Mike from, oh my gosh, Man Talk Monday. Wayne from Man Talk Monday. Thank you so much. Kev, I think I saw you in the chat for Man Talk Monday. Thank you so much. Who else was in the chat? MD from Take This Politics. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Michelle, thank you for joining us. I saw Venkat for a little bit from Take This Politics. Thank you so much for joining us. Cassandra, thank you for chiming in the chat. You all are greatly appreciated. You all are greatly appreciated. And again, I just want to welcome Therapy Sessions with Dr. Mia over here on Pour Your Heart Out, because where else would she be? She is Pour Your Heart Out. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you on the other side.
See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Therapy Sessions with Dr. Mia. Remember, healing is a journey, and each step forward is progress, no matter how small. Take the time you need to reflect on what's been discussed, and don't hesitate to seek the support you deserve. You are not alone on this path. If tonight's session resonated with you, share it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more conversations on growth, self-acceptance, and healing. Until next time, be kind to yourself and keep healing forward.